Life in Jersey City in the summer of 1942 was no different than the rest of America. The country had been drawn into the war and life had changed dramatically. Most of our young men went off to fight in the East and the West. The people left behind did all they could to support the war effort, selling war bonds and collecting raw materials, holding rallies and even working in factories. Jersey City was a town of ethnic neighborhoods. Our city, behind the Statue of Liberty, represented the first and last stop for many European immigrants, whose first step on American soil was in Jersey City. Although attention was fixed on the entire scope of World War II, many of our residents were particularly interested in Italy and the havoc that Benito Mussolini was wreaking from his new alliance with Hitler. After becoming involved in campaigns in Greece, Spain, and North Africa, Italy fell out of war early. After intense fighting, great numbers of Italian soldiers were actually captured and executed by their own allies, the Germans. Many other Italian soldiers surrendered and were shipped off to camps all across Europe and America, including Caven Point, a top-secret U.S. Army camp about 100 yards from the Statue of Liberty in Jersey City. My own husband, Enrique, was fighting with the American troops in Sicily just around the time of Mussolini's capture. I constantly feared for him and had to keep myself busy chaperoning some of the young girls to and from social events. On a normal Sunday morning at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, Monsignor Ardioli was preaching to us about the usual when all of a sudden he launched into a request that had been forwarded to him from the United States government. Our own government was requesting Italian-speaking youth to visit the Italian prisoners of war to help them write letters back to families in Italy, requesting that the remaining Italians refrain from helping Hitler. Although my girls were their usual selves at the service, they would be leaving the church as unlikely U.S. government representatives on a true local peace mission. As the Monsignor spoke, three of the girls, Anna, Angie, and Francie, began to half hear words like legions of young Italian men, on the waterfront in Jersey City, and needed our help. Once they realized that they were being asked to sign up for an unusual mission meeting and greeting Italian soldiers, they began to become excited. That morning, they and I signed up. I assumed the job of keeping an eagle eye on their innocence, which in the 40s was fairly easy. But, oh, how these playful young girls became such proper young ladies overnight. When we left church that day for the bus to Caven Point, we were ready to make the sacrifice for our country.
Nel nome del Padre, Figlio e Spirito Santo. Cari amici, le nostre preghiere sono rivolte verso i nostri figli, che in questo momento combattono una guerra violenta per difendere la nostra patria. Nel nome del Padre, Figlio, Spirito Santo. Cari amici, durante la prossima settimana le forze armate americane porteranno su queste sponde prigionieri di guerra italiani. Questi prigionieri hanno combattuto tra le forze armate di Mussolini contro l'America, però ora non fanno parte più del nemico. Circa 2000 soldati italiani, alcuni in meno di 15 anni, saranno detenuti nella base militare di Caven Point, situata nella nostra città di Jersey City, e dove lavoreranno sotto l'insegno Italian Service Unit. Cari amici fedeli, abbiamo ricevuto una richiesta onorabile dal capitano di questa base dove ci chiede volontariamente di scrivere lettere ai nostri amici che risiedono in Italia e a pregarli di non cooperare con le forze armate di Hitler e per facilitare al più presto una vittoria di guerra per l'America e i suoi alleati. Inoltre, la vostra patria vi prega di visitare queste basi militari ed aiutare anche i vostri connazionali prigionieri a scrivere queste lettere ai loro connazionali e familiari in Italia. Così le nostre forze armate potranno finalmente al più presto terminare questa brutta guerra. Amici, la nostra patria ci chiama al dovere. In nome del Padre, Figlio, Spirito Santo. Amen.
During World War II, there were many prisoner of war camps created around the country. Caven Point was more secretive than others because it was the site of many ships embarking and disembarking with troops, ammunition, and supplies going to the campaign, while POWs were sent back this way. There were other camps in New Jersey, such as Camp Kilmer, where similar governmental efforts ensued. Many of the prisoners chose to join the ISU, Italian Service Unit. The ISU enabled them to work for the Allied war effort. While at camp, prisoners kept busy cooking food and more food for themselves and the camp. Besides cooking and ISU duties, they passed the time playing sports, performing in plays, general cleanup work, and many other activities. Our assignment was to motivate them to write letters of friendship and guidance toward helping the Allied war efforts.
There was a novena on Monday night for the fellas in service, and they had flags up on all the candles and all. And while we were praying for our boys, the priest made an announcement that there were Italian prisoners of war that were at a lot of our camps, and there were some at Caven Point, which was not far from us. We could get there by bus, and would we like to go and visit them to make their life a little bit more happier than they were, because they were far from home, they were very unhappy, they were lonely, and a lot of the people down there didn't speak Italian. So we decided that, when you're 17 and the guys are away, you have nothing to do, so we decided we would go and see the prisoners of war. And it was the most wonderful experience, because I was a little flighty at 17, and when you see people far from home and lonely, missing their parents and missing their relatives, really hit home for me. It really did. I really felt very sorry for them.
We brought them toothpaste, writing paper, candy, and cigarettes was a must. So it was just a case of giving them a little boost in their morale, They were very, very lonely, didn't And most of the people that were taking care of them, they didn't even speak Italian. So it was hard for them.
When we got off the bus and saw all these Italian guys, you know, some of them were so handsome and all, we were both
Good
single.
looking.
They were good looking. A lot of them were very good looking. We thought we were going to have a good time. Ann spoke a little bit of Italian. It wasn't too hard for her. Me, I had to do sign language. So we had these tables. Everybody had food on the table. There were, I'd say, 12, 13 around with 6 or 7 women around. And believe it or not, you got to understand with your hands talking what they were saying.
My father, on the other hand, wasn't too happy that we were going because they were young boys and we were young girls. But eventually, you know, my mother sort of told him we weren't doing anything wrong. We were just doing what our pastor at that time wanted us to do. If you spoke Italian, you could understand how what their feelings were. And they thought America was wonderful. They thought we were very, very kind to them. But they said they couldn't wait to get home. No matter what happened, they wanted to get home.
Although some of the girls' friends and families considered our visits as consorting with the enemy, while our own friends and family were still fighting in Europe, we saw this as a government mission that actually supported the war effort. Letters began to be written and common bonds were established. Many of the soldiers were happy that Mussolini was gone and yet feared for their families back in Italy. With the backdrop of war, I guess what we shared was humanity and understanding.
I really didn't know that there were prisoners, that we had Italian prisoners here during the Second World War until Monsignor Artioli asked us if we would like to entertain them. He wanted to bring them to our parish hall and give them food or whatever. Like, I think he gave them coffee and cake. It's such a long while ago. That's about all I can remember. So when he asked me if I would entertain, I said gladly, and I was happy to. Because, first of all, my father played guitar, banjo, and mandolin, and he was always playing music, and he taught me the Italian songs, beautiful Italian songs. So I figured to let them feel at home, I would sing an Italian song for them.
I was playing with Gerardo Yesilli and in a regular band, and we were invited to play for these prisoners of camp, prisoners of war. And we went to see them a couple of days, and then they took us back to New York. And then from New York, they invited us to go and pick them up and take them to see the sights of New York City, like the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, and then off of Broadway, and down to the Jewish settlement downtown. All these places we went. We were dressed regularly like I am now, with clean shirts, Henry said, I was clean and tie, and we had a blue ribbon on the left side. They had a tag that says specifically prisoners of war, and that's all. 34th Street, it's a big avenue, a big street, and a lot of people were looking at us. So I said, I was a detective. I was only a civilian with a blue ribbon, that's all. And we had the pleasure of being escorted by the police too, crossing the avenue and everything. We only had I had about 10, another fellow, another 10. We were about 40, 46 men we brought up.
Although most stockings were rounded up for reuse of the nylon in parachutes, we were able to salvage a few pairs of stockings for our own legs. Even though there was an ocean that separated our countries, we all shared common bonds to Italy. Each visit led to true friendships and many letters back home to Italy. As time went on, Anna, Angelica, and Francesca were anxious to find out more about Italy and to share the soldiers' pride of their homeland. Even though we were in a prison camp in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, the girls were very eager to learn the ways of their ancestors. Miguel, Raphael, and Antonio, who were from Rome, Naples, and Sicily, taught us the folk dances of their regions. In turn, we taught them the American swing.
when I went to work and told the girls that I went to see the prisoner of war, they said that I was a traitor. They were really, really upset. And I said, after all, these fellas were not doing anything wrong, and we were visiting them just to make their lives a little better. But I got a lot of backlash from the girls that I worked with, boy. They didn't like the fact that we were going.
These young Italian soldiers were in America now, and it was up to us to teach them something called a swing. After all, we went to the movie palaces and we shopped at Journal Square. It's a part of Jersey City that Glenn Miller and his band turned into a song called the Jersey Bounce. One of the prisoners said that when he was captured by the Americans, he joked with them now that they have to stay in Europe and fight Hitler while he was going to America. That night I couldn't stop thinking about my Enrique, who was an American captain somewhere in Italy. I read and reread his letters as my heart became heavy with longing for his touch, his words, his kiss.
One of the prisoners happened to be my first cousin. He was also my godfather. And I remember him telling me when I was still back in Italy, when he came back, when telling us, me and the rest of the family, all about it. And we also had other relatives here in Jersey City, which they went to meet him there, and they took some photographs. Unfortunately, the photographs are no longer in existence. And but they were not able to, he was not able to leave the campus, and they were never able to take him home for dinner or anything, so they're only able to visit with each other right on campus for about a couple hours, and then when they said, and then they said their goodbyes and they left. So that's about, that's about the extent of it. But in my recollection, and it's very vivid in my mind, when he used to tell the stories about it, and how excited he was when to meet a member of his family is so far away from home, and he was only 19 years old. Then after 1945, the war was over. My godfather comes home and he's telling me all the experience that he had as a prisoner, and he was in America, and he had met relatives here, and he had pictures, and he showed us pictures and all. And then in 1955, I was lucky enough, to come to America and be with my uncle here, and we visit Caven Point, and then my cousin and my godfather, his name was Giovanni, and he also came to the United States after he got married, and he had 2 boys. And when he visited Jersey City, the first thing he wanted to do, that he remembered Caven Point. And we made a trip to Caven Point, and he just stood there, and he actually cried. He said, I still remember when I got off the boat and I was greeted by the relatives here, and it was very, very, very touching experience, that we all had.
In 1945, the prisoners were sent home. Some of the women followed them to Italy and eventually brought them back to America as their husbands. As for Anna, Francie, and Angela, they all married Italian-American veterans who returned from the war. As for myself, Henry, whom I assumed was dead, was released from a hospital in northern Africa and sent home. Caven Point is an Army Reserve camp now, but every time I pass it, I can't help but think of the Saturday night dances, our secret government mission, and the bonds we formed with these young prisoners in World War II's most benign prison camp, Caven Point.